Welcome to The Difference Engine, the show for tech founders, investors, and innovators. So, Paul, what's coming up today?
Well, we'll be asking if the EU's tech police are losing control of our digital streets.
And we'll be giving you a hands-on guide on how to carve out your own category niche.
But first, let's take a look at the battleground of the desktop AI category war. Right, the desktop AI category wars have warmed up again. The leading PC manufacturers used the recent Vegas-based US Jamboree known as the Consumer Electronics Show to showcase their latest lineup of, inverted commas, AI PCs. What the hell? And these are all powered by neural processing units.
I'm sort of amazed that the CES still exists. I mean, it's sort of, it's cockroach-like, isn't it, really? It's
never dies.
Pretty revolting. And as you say, it never dies. But it is still with us. So what we're interested in on this is that as tech changes fundamentally, in the incumbents in any one category all are separately searching for how to be relevant in a new game. So we're wondering how the arrival of AI is affecting the now uber mature PC category.
Pivot.
I don't think there's not much pivoting going on, but we're about to explore that. So what we've seen recently is NVIDIA deliberately grabbing the headlines pre-CES with the launch of its Digits machine. That brings a sophisticated AI development platform to everybody's desktop. It's easy to understand as a brand new category.
And you want one, right? You want one.
Of course we do.
I want one.
Want to move the whole thing forward. We all want the personal AI supercomputer to move the industry forward. It's not been done before, and it is different. Right? The fundamental category issue, it is different to anything else that's currently on offer. So meanwhile, as this thing blasts its way into the public consciousness, the incumbent PC manufacturers pivot, no doubt desperate to climb up to a new AI-driven S-curve, taking different approaches to integrating AI into their offer. So we saw announcements from the usual bunch: Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo. But what they said stood out in different ways.
All right.
So I think what was really interesting to start with was Acer absolutely following the Microsoft delivery platform with the new Copilot Plus lineup. By the way, for those of you not familiar with Copilot Plus, it's not to be confused with Copilot. Copilot Plus is a new Microsoft-defined type of PC hardware, one which has been specifically designed for AI tasks, and that is distinct from Copilot, Microsoft's sort of rather irritating generative AI chatbot. Anyway, these Acer machines, powered by AMD Ryzen AI 300 series processors using the AMD XDNA2 NPU architecture and including AMD Radeon 800M graphics. Very AMD then.
Very feeds and speeds.
Yeah, so just to be fair, of course, Acer has introduced some Intel core-powered machines. The Aspire SAI and the Revo are desktop devices with the same Copilot Plus capabilities.
Confusing branding though, right?
Very confusing architecture, very confusing branding. I'm quite an Acer fan, so don't take that personally, Acer. So cold comfort to Intel with Acer leading out with AMD technologies is that HP unveiled the Z2 Mini and ZBook Ultra, which the company claims, inverted commas, engages users to engage in 3D design, render graphics intensive projects, and simultaneously work locally on LLMs.
Sack that copywriter.
Oh, dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And much to Intel, I'm sure, chagrin, the new HP hardware is powered by AMD Ryzen AI Max PR processors. So that's interesting. I think, AMD at least 2 to Intel's 1 so far. And coming in at the side, Dell, rather than chucking another piece of hardware into the environment, has focused on adding value. in trying to simplify AI development on PCs. And it's launched a thing called Dell Pro AI Studio, which offers an AI toolkit with validating tools, frameworks, templates, and models to help developers and IT administrators, don't leave out the IT administrators, to build and manage AI software independent of the underlying silicon.
Software play.
Yeah, indeed. And Dell is claiming the performance advantage, reducing development and deployment times by as much as 75%. So going from 6 months to as little as 6 weeks. Should you want the capability, of course.
I am just struggling with all of this provability of any of that.
Yeah, it's a bit yada yada, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lenovo, on the other hand, formerly IBM's PC division, for those of you with a memory, they tried to go with user experience enhancement. Available on the Intel, hurrah, at last, Core Ultra-powered Lenovo AI Now and Lenovo Aura Edition PCs. We've got the company's flagship ThinkPad X9. It's offering what Lenovo calls an advanced on-device AI assistant, oh dear, to deliver real-time intelligence to users. Actually, really irritate them, probably. It's built on local large language model, but it's using Meta's Llama 3.0. So what they're saying is it's storing all the data and processes locally. So, of course, Lenovo is claiming that safeguards user information while delivering powerful
excuse me for being
AI
cynical.
capabilities. You're right to be cynical on this.
I'm very cynical. I mean, it's just a load of sort of people trying to make themselves seem relevant in a new world and throwing a whole bunch of feeds and speeds at things. I'm not seeing the differentiation that NVIDIA is showing.
Absolutely not. And, Asus came in last, being a bit contrary here. Unveiling a Qualcomm Snapdragon-powered ZenBook, the A14. Sounds like a dreadful old B road or A road in Essex, doesn't it? That does. So it offers to deliver high TDP performance along with neural processing capability. Again, should you want it? So, as you have indicated already, Paul, what are we going to learn from this? So
better is not different.
It absolutely is. It looks like the strategy of the PC makers is varying from mostly from we must give a nod to some form of AI assistant feature to a more full-on embracing of AI development capability with the software suites that Dell are coming out with. But this is absolutely not the full-on blood and guts assault of NVIDIA's category-creating personal AI supercomputer. We did say at the beginning that the wars are warming up, and it's not hot. It looks like a few tepid internecine skirmishes to us. I think with Acer running for cover firmly behind Microsoft barricades.
I cannot get excited about any of these things, and I would struggle to think that even the most avid PC fan and tech person with a need to replace all of their PCs could get excited
no,
too.
You simply can't. It's just a whole bag of better, isn't it?
Yeah.
This? But I mean, just in the defence of these people we might appear to be having a go at, leading out a category doesn't make for a category. NVIDIA is going to need some competition in its new...
Because pioneers get arrows in the back.
Of course they do. But I think right now, except at the margins, that the PC bunch from Acer to Lenovo aren't the competition. In fact, I think we'd probably wager that NVIDIA's competition is likely to emerge from some plucky new player or
I
players.
think it's going to come from underneath, from the chip players that are rivaling it, and that will spawn real innovation. This ain't it.
It's clear that we don't know yet who it is that's going to lead that assault. But as you say, probably from the chip players and probably from underneath. So in the case of this, fortune favours the brave, or fools rush in where angels fear to tread. We'll soon see.
Sure, we'll be back to that.
Think there are too many lookalike tech companies chasing the same markets? We do. We think it's because so few tech startups are able to build and lead their own categories. What matters most is to be different. Stop following and start building your own unassailable leadership position today. Working with the category design gurus at Categorical brings decades of differentiation expertise to your team. Book a consultation from our website today, and we will send you our one-pager detailing how to start designing your own highly differentiated category.
You've got to learn to earn.
So I thought I'd do some interrogation here of Professor Ma on a subject that we've been working on quite extensively in recent months with categorical clients. And it's really how to carve out a subcategory from an established category niche.
So let's talk about that, because one of the things we do get asked about categories, what size is the category? Are we looking for an Uber category? Are we looking for a subcategory? So category design in tech helps to differentiate companies one from another. This helps obviously with sales, marketing, building up a customer base of like-minded buyers over time and partners, etc. It has a second role. So when you build a category, this helps to position companies as leaders in markets which can demonstrate growth and blue ocean future potential. In other words, large total addressable markets. Who loves that? Investors love it. And in this practical session, we're going to give you some real world examples to take you through big or how small should your category be, and when to opt for a subcategory.
A lot of things to try and integrate here.
There's a lot of thinking to go through. And if you listen back to the Andy Cunningham episode we did a while ago, you remember Andy is the lady that worked as number 2 to Steve Jobs. She is a big fan of the subcategories.
Silicon Valley legend,
royalty. And so we've worked ourselves with some massive categories, P2C, product to consumer. That's a digital commerce category combining B2B, B2C, and direct to consumer, D2C. And so it was appropriate in that case to have a huge addressable market. We've also worked at the other end on very, very niche categories, such as our work with Sphere on a category relevant just to a few thousand very specific people on Earth. In this case, oil traders.
So the skill is determining how large the problem is.
This is also a factor of how much of a pain the pain is to those feeling it.
Yeah.
So yeah, mega categories like Uber's transportation platform appeals to virtually everyone, from disillusioned cab passengers to hungry families, because it covers Uber Eats and Uber transportation. But basically anybody that lives in a large metropolis, right?
Sure.
And given its successful category enlargement from cabs to Uber Eats, it's now got a very strong network effect, which in retrospect seems obvious, but clearly wasn't at that time. The drivers feed capacity, which creates convenience, which creates buyers, and so it goes round and round and round.
It's a real flywheel, that one.
An even bigger app, the Everything app. There are only a handful of those in the world.
WeChat, Amazon.
Yeah, and perhaps soon Grok. Elon has been advertising for engineers to join what he's openly saying is the Everything app. Where's he got that idea from? Well, the Everything store is Bezos's idea. And these super apps, and you mentioned WeChat in China is probably the best known example, have massive TAMs. Massive TAMs. However, not all categories are like this. And some categories are smaller and they allow for more focused category creation. And we've worked on categories which specifically address issues such as perhaps 100,000 folks in the world who make their living in international taxation assessment.
And reporting.
No, we said, taxation, not tax avoidance, and definitely not tax evasion.
No, definitely not tax evasion. Definitely
Just
not.
sort of tax management. It's a smaller category, and so the point of view will reflect that. The category name will reflect that. So sorry to say, there's no simple answer to, do I go for a big category or a small category? The answer is, it depends.
But it's interesting that we've been bumping up against some mega categories, certainly in cyber and certainly in the cyber training area, loosely cyber training.
Yeah, so we're actually engaged at the moment in a project. We've done a fair amount of work in the past on cyber, which is the one evergreen and in fact booming part of the tech market, even in these straitened times. Gartner's seeing, for instance, a 15% rise in spending, even above the billions that's already being spent in cyber again this year. The issue, though, is it's so large a category, it's hard to differentiate.
But I guess on the flip side, there's plenty of room to create new slices of the pie as that whole sector continues to innovate and new opportunities, in fact, do appear, new real opportunities.
And I think this is part of the answer to people to say, is it worth building a category? People forget the pie grows. So is there space on the pie? Well, there's more space on the pie, so we can have more segments, we can have more subcategories.
Okay.
That's what you get in a growing market.
Okay, so I'm sure the listeners have been listening for this with bated breath. What really is our advice here for, should you subcategorize or should you not subcategorize?
Well, I think there's three main areas we would give as advice. And the first one, which is quite obvious, but is done poorly in most cases, is to check out the opposition's stance and look for that white space.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly in proven markets. We do see a lot of bunching, similar sounding rival points of view, and frankly, even category names.
Literally, books have been written on how one finds the white space, red ocean, blue ocean, etc.
Yeah.
But from our point of view, it's amazing, and it's perhaps a reason that marketing people don't often make the best leaders of a category project. Is that it's easy to be samey.
Yeah.
And that's what you get when you get this bunching around certain categories. And certainly certain analyst firms who shall remain nameless don't help here.
Yeah, I think there is an issue that marketing departments often get themselves on rails and start thinking like everybody else. And
groupthink.
It is groupthink. And what they don't do is point out the difference and, of course, crucially, reframe the customer's expectations, because they're so busy trying to point out bits of better that they forget it's all about difference.
And the more samey it is, the bigger the opportunity is our contention.
Yeah, and we did some interesting work with Pantera in that security space on this, didn't we?
Yes, so there's a lot of pen testing rivals who are talking about very similar issues, but missing the crucial white space. And that's about the validation of the security posture done continuously through lower cost automation, not one-off testing, which was, instantly outdated in terms of being a valuable solution to a problem once you'd had your biannual, very expensive pen test.
Yeah, but that was just industry standard at the time, wasn't it? And just because it didn't work very well, it didn't mean that everybody didn't do it.
Yeah, very much groupthink. And pleasingly, our automated security validation category, which Pantera forged, was emulated in short order by all of its rivals, then the analyst community, and finally even governments. And you can see automated security validation in RFP tender documents at this point. That's leadership. So
and they just had their second appearance on the great big NASDAQ screen in Times Square.
Bless them. They're doing well.
So impressed America is with Pantera.
Fabulous execution. The second thing, apart from checking out the opposition's stance and looking for that white space, is to examine down at the ICP level, the ideal customer profile. Who are you going to deep dive into as ideal customers?
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, very few individual companies have exactly the same requirements.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? So how do you have an ICP sort of stereotypical profile of a customer when everybody's a bit different, right?
We've been seeing, talk about the groupthink again, for too long, we've seen this sort of mantra of SaaS sameness and minimal viable product, where they've tried to make horizontal apps where one size fits all. One size cannot fit all.
And this is a tension, right? At one point, you want a minimal viable product because it's what they call product market fit and looks good optically. At the same time, if you overfit to a certain customer profile, that's going to take you away from having a big category. You're going to niche where you don't need to niche. So for some time now, though, the winds of change have been blowing, and tech is bought in many enterprises by a combination of different ICPs. Yeah. So gone are the days where it's like, it's the IT department or a line of business, and they're fighting against each other, as if only non-tech dilettantes and amateurs could assess the usefulness of tech for their roles. Yeah. People know what they want.
Yeah,
their problems are their problems, right? Yeah. And this realization has still not quite hit home with many of the tech product marketing professionals and marketing teams who are convinced that segmentation just means, there's a CIO and that's different from a CISO.
Yeah, and there's still way too much build it and they will come, and not enough listening to what the actual problems are of the people that are making the money to pay for the product in the first place.
And if one was being philosophical, you could say that's because a few years ago, a lot of money was funding all ideas, right?
Yeah.
In fact, there are two complementary and often overlapping roles in many cases. The skill is to figure out what it is that's going to appeal to the ICP and figure out how many ICPs you need to cover.
Yeah.
In reality, they may share a lot of the issues, desires, and they may even share the budget.
Yeah, crucially.
So in the work we do look at professional roles, both at the higher level and the lower level of needs or desires, by which we mean, is this something that's explicit? Is it something that's implicit? And this is sort of standard fare in the world of B2C. Categories there are developed specifically for ICPs or buyer personas, which are nothing to do with what people do for a living, because they're in the world of B2C.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you might overweight on pensioners if you're selling, investment products.
Yeah.
You might over-index on pregnant women or anxious new parents with, baby products. The emphasis here is less on who you are and more about the position you are in, which is what we argue you should do with B2B categories.
It's how the user, people that's going to use your product, how they feel and how they react and how they behave. It's a deeper dive.
It's a much, much deeper dive. So from the other end of the lens, where you want to have a very huge TAM, it may be that what unites a bunch of cohorts of seemingly different ICPs is, in fact, radically simple.
Yeah, I mean, we've done some work in the application management software space.
We did with one of our guests on here, Mr. Karai.
Yeah.
And what we came up with there was the never-ending to-do list. Quite a simple concept based off the fact that there's a long set of tasks which every day the IT operations folks and the networking folks and perhaps a networking engineer or a CISO or even the engineer in charge of all comms on an oil tanker, they have that problem, the never-ending to-do list.
Just adds to and adds to and adds to.
Yeah, so our category here can be larger because that is a larger set of needs with more ICPs.
It's a common problem.
It's a common
Look
problem.
for the common problem.
Yeah, and in both cases, both the high view and the low view of the issues, that's what goes into your problem statement. That becomes your category point of view. And that gives you the benefits at the appropriate scale for the market. The key to getting this right is to honestly assess at which level your ideal world solution is valuable to the customers.
And that's the point of view is look at things as a customer, not somebody selling to a customer. And there's a real difference.
It's where art and science collide, and dare I say it, where a bit of third-party objective external help can be very useful.
I think they collude, don't they?
One important caveat, though, in coming up with all of this ICP work is to push hard and imagine the future. Luckily for us, tech changes fast. But just because some solutions are valued today, it's no guarantee they're going to be valued in the future.
Because there may be some external circumstances that are forcing change over which you have no control, but to which you can react. So, think about dial-up modems compared to an omnipresent 5G.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, clippy versus the AI co-pilots. Although, frankly, they both seem to have being very annoying in common. But there is a wonderful rate of change which constantly pervades in tech.
And another piece of advice here is pay special attention to intermediaries in your market. Tech is all about automation. That's losing as many intermediaries as possible. And as we build out categories, we like to test out how the role of people within an ecosystem, a current ecosystem, may change.
And that is also rooted in the idea of distribution. But so you have to think about the way value-added resellers have become managed service providers as cloud has taken hold. Travel agents just became portals.
News.com.
News agents have become drop-off spaces for e-commerce parcels and returns. And, bank tellers have just become phone apps.
Just on our phones. So that is an additional piece of work that one should do in addition to figuring out your ICPs, who are the future ICPs. Now, the third and final thing we talk about is to remember, if possible, to keep the category as broad as you can. We talked about niching down, but keep the category broad for future expansion and to avoid sameness.
Yeah, so they really do need to be as large as possible. Now, that may sound contradictory to previous advice to go niche where it makes sense, but a category of one is not a category.
No categories, yeah. And we always want not just our partners and customers to adopt a category. We need, and this is why we do strikes, analysts, the skeptics in the media, and the competition to adopt our category and the language that we pioneered too. That way, we leverage a way wider community than ourselves, and that is genuinely something that makes people nervous, but that is the game.
It's a valid concern for many, and not considering how to keep a category as mainstream as possible from the start is an easy mistake to make. And a lot of this is rooted in people's desire to keep hold of the category. That's not what you do. Your job is to get that category out into the mainstream.
Hard, yeah. So bear in mind the ways in which your category could grow. We talked about future ICPs, etc. Think about new entrants. Think about pivoting rivals who are joining your category. Think about the intermediaries that might start to offer new services based on your success that could help with your category.
But I think the other thing is when you start thinking like this, don't let this seemingly almost sheer impossibility of such a task be off-putting. It does take tremendous effort to start rolling a rock.
Once it's moving, it gathers momentum, and only at the end of the journey, as it speeds down the slope, is this momentum fully appreciated.
Yeah, and that's sort of when you ask the question, how did we ever manage without this XX
What did
category?
we do before Uber?
Yep.
Who knew how communication was going to go before we had Slack, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's when you've created a new category.
So can you summarize what we have learned here then?
Overall, we think that building a category within another category is smart, but there's no way to identify and build a subcategory that's particularly easy. It does require a broad overview. It's got to be an identification of an opportunity and the chance to do things differently, and you really, really have to go and exploit it. And it often helps to have an external perspective on this.
Yeah.
We would say that, wouldn't we?
We would.
But think about the many times in your life when you've got stuck in a way of thinking and somebody else had said something and you almost slap your forehead and go, why didn't I think of that?
So whether your category is the largest category imaginable, another everything to app, or something much more niche, it all sparks from a compelling proposition, one that frees customers from legacy thinking, an idea that once you've understood, you can't forget, and creates this momentum for change.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something with a remorseless logic, and that's why we spend so much time developing points of view. It's that remorseless logic that means it would be remiss for a potential customer not to investigate.
Yeah, it's a spark that promises significant advantages on everything else out there, and which brings everything together. It's the North Star of category design, and it's something that requires real focus and, as we know to our cost, multiple iterations to get it right, all of which is because it's ultimately worth designing your own category so you can lead it.
And because of the sheer value and market domination that a category breakthrough brings. What does the future hold? Let's look into our crystal ball.
All right then, Jonathan, what do you see in the crystal ball?
I think the crystal ball is showing us at the moment that it could be all over for the EU as the world's tech police. Now, I say this because not one but two Financial Times articles recently on consecutive days made us think it may be time that the EU stop pretending it's going to be granted the gig as the world's AI cops. And having said that, to be fair, the legislators have had a fair run at this.
Yeah, the EU has absolutely led the way globally. The General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR, has been well received globally. It was so well received, it became the North Star of data privacy across the world, from Istanbul, but Turkey's got its own version of GDPR, and even as far as California. So this is where the EU has affected US policy. Definitely a strong piece of legislation.
Yeah, and I also am frankly very glad that my new iPhone has a micro USB charger on it. I mean, that is clearly going to be saving landfill from an awful lot of cast-off cables.
So some more good that the EU did with this legislation.
Definitely.
Lovely. And let's not forget where it all kicked off, where the GDPR kicked off with Max Schrems and the others, notably the data privacy folks in Ireland, working through the European courts for years to force big tech, notably Meta or Facebook as it was then, to admit it was a modern day robber baron corrupting all of our data in exchange for merely a way to share pictures and messages on the internet. And this helped us all realize that the surveillance economy came at the price of our privacy. And it was a global wake-up call. and it caused the techlash.
Remember that?
I do remember the techlash, actually.
Didn't like it at the time,
We
did
didn't
we?
like it at the really but it seems a bit quaint now because
Really
there's a
weird,
massive
really
techlash
weird.
going on.
Though, having said all this, I think one could claim somewhat of an overreach by regulators of late.
Got to be big for their boots.
Yeah, UK online safety bill,
Disaster.
Franken regulation, broke the model, tipped the scales against big tech in Europe. Years in the making, with its huge fines, confused objectives. Frankly, is it about paedophiles or control of the entire population?
This is when bad regulation gives the tech cops or the regulators a bad name. This law has gone wrong, and it's threatening a disproportionate intrusion into our privacy in the UK. If they can, that's even if they can ever make the so-called client-side scanning, that's CSS, work. And that's something that Imperial College just wrote a paper about recently, one of our most tech-savvy institutions. And it's on record, is Imperial College, it's saying this turns smartphones into surveillance devices. What's that got to do with paedophiles?
Well, I don't know, but anybody that doesn't think smartphones are already some form of surveillance device is deluded. I mean, just say something about a product that you're never going to buy and just watch those ads appear on your social and your news feeds.
That's right. So, lots of examples of this, people talking about babies and then nappy adverts coming up. Famously, this was thought to be causing legal issues because people were looking at, maybe things about contraception pills and their parents finding out. This is dodgy surveillance. This Franken bill, which entirely justified families, like the family, for instance, of Molly Russell, thought was going to help out anti-pedophiles, and she was tragically a victim of social media pressure. It pushed our lawmakers into extending and grabbing more of our freedom. And this has consequences for all of us, especially the law-abiding citizens that are accidentally caught up in this stuff.
Here we are now. It looks like things are changing.
So all political leaders have this desire to be lawmakers, not law takers. I think that's an actual quote from our current leadership.
Yeah.
But this could be coming to a crashing end.
Would that be something to do with what's happening across the pond?
The re-emergence of the Donald and his merry band of tech-evangelists has got the EU and all the other lawmakers reeling.
Now, we've been thinking about this quite a lot recently, haven't we? And we're really not sure whether to celebrate this or be very, very worried.
Yeah, well, certainly the bureaucrats are very spooked. And back to your Financial Times articles.
Oh, yes.
The first one was entitled EU reassesses tech probes into Apple, Google, and Meta. But let's think about this. So the EU, the definition of European, reassesses its tech probes, in other words, its huge swinging fines that it's been giving, to Apple, Google, and Meta. What do you notice? They're all American.
Yeah.
This is the makings of a proper good old trade war.
Yeah, it's all going to be very tribal, I think.
And this story, of course, is sourced from two unnamed sources.
Oh, how very EU.
How EU does that sound? Oh, we'll just leak this. It quoted one of the unnamed sources as follows. It's going to be a whole new ball game with these tech oligarchs so close to Trump and using that to pressure us.
Ooh, do
you reckon?
Do you think this is payback for all those eye-watering fines?
Oh, I think it might be. Later, in the same piece, Stephanie Jon Curtin, an MEP who was heavily involved in drafting the tech rules, was reported as sending a letter to the president of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, imploring her not to be taken hostage. The language is ramping up, isn't it?
It is very imploring.
The second article from the FT made for even glummer reading for the regularity.
Irregularity?
We just made that up. It's not very good.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, maybe an only.
Yeah, never again.
So the so-called Big Read article in the FT, don't worry, we've spared you the trouble, was from, and I'm going to knacker this, Marietje Schaake. That's atrocious.
I think you need to work on your Dutch there.
She is, though, a fellow of the Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence and the Cyber Policy Center at Stanford University in California. So she probably knows what she's talking about. The article is entitled, Europe's Super Regulator Role is Under Threat.
And that's all about Silicon Valley and Washington are merging.
That's literally what the angle is. And she said, it is time European leaders overcame their idle hope and memories of cooperation.
Ouch! The author of one of the FT pieces also points to Mark Zuckerberg's Damascene conversion to all things Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Including his announcement of a massive screeching brakes and tires U-turn on content moderation in the face of rampant free speech movement, and his comparison of EU antitrust remedies to tariffs.
This Damascene conversion has to concern European leaders.
Certainly has.
She doesn't report, and this is alleged, his dissing of his former best female friend, Sheryl Sandberg. Of course, she was his loyal second in command until recently. She's being thrown under the bus, it would seem like. And that's not even mentioning old Cleggy, or former Deputy Prime Minister, who he threw under the bus earlier. So we did note that she also quotes in the same piece US Vice President J.D. Vance. He is willing, apparently, to leverage security guarantees, whatever they are, to threaten Europe if it legislates Musk's companies, including X.
Oh my God, X versus NATO.
Ooh, that sounds like a championship fight. You heard it here first. And this is the quote, I think, which encapsulates all of these issues about regulation and the EU's aspirations the best.
Oh, this one, everything the EU has been working on for the past 5 years as a self-declared super regulator will soon be challenged from its ambitions of greater strategic autonomy to digital sovereignty, improving digital competition, and shoring up responsibilities of corporate content moderation. Wow.
It's all gone, guys. Well, that's a pretty clear slap on the wrist, or some would say a slap upside the head.
Upside the head.
I mean, the backdrop of this, as we all know, is the move against mainstream politicians in several places, in the US and the EU. Now, the politicians need votes, and interestingly enough, the public are not massively pro some of these regulations, right?
What about the ban on TikTok? I mean, people surely should know better.
I mean, I think we all know people who wouldn't say they're addicted to TikTok, but sort of are, and don't really care in the same way that our EU regulators do about their privacy. And so that's not going down particularly well, it has to be said. So where does this all leave us?
Well, Trump is in power now, and let's face it, China and the US are fighting for the future domination of AI.
He doesn't need some flies buzzing around his head from the EU about regulation.
No, there'll be little sympathy from those wanting to build regulatory moats, even in the EU.
So that's sort of it could be the end of an era. And our crystal ball predicts a toning down from the EU as this becomes a bit more apparent, really.
Turning down the idea of being a lawgiver with a much more pragmatic view.
Interestingly enough, where we land on this in our crystal ball is this could be a good thing.
Weirdly, after we thought it through, we think it could be a good thing. And it could lead to the EU adopting tech innovation at the pace dictated by the new US regime. I guess while many see this as a lack of sovereignty, both from a data point of view and a legal point of view, it could, we think, usher a new era of innovation. The danger is that we over-rotate and become bitter losers, though, isn't it?
I think we want to be part of a group of countries where the young talent that we have aspires not just to be regulators and lawyers, but maybe creators, engineers, and those who create categories.
Yeah, so letting it rip could actually be a good thing for EU tech. Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about category design, head to becategorical.com. If you need help designing and dominating your category, then get in touch. Contact details are in the show notes.